This is Dateline News and Conversation. After a 2-month hiatus because of some unknown interference, I'm back. And my guest tonight, my good friend, longtime good friend, the one and only Bruce Gagnon. Bruce, welcome back.
Good to see you again. I like that sweatshirt, that hoodie you're wearing too.
Yeah, I think some guy in oh, come on, focus it. There we go.
There it is.
And my
It was
thing's
there
having
for a
a hard time.
second.
Anyway, it comes from the Global Network.
Yep, it looks great. When did you get it?
I got it a couple of weeks ago, and I just forgot to tell you. I was so busy finishing a film about Russell Bentley, the Donbas cowboy, for a film festival coming up. Anyway, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So there's a lot to talk about, but the first thing I want to talk to you about and ask you about is the unrestrained violence of Israel on the people of Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, and they had the gall to attack Iran. And we're risking an all out war because of this back and forth between Israel and Iran. I want to ask you this specifically. The United States has been supporting this with billions of dollars, been propping up Israel since 1948, along with the UK. So we'll talk about the US support, but then I want to ask you about these two people running for the highest office in the land. Both of them fully support the genocide that's going on in Palestine and in the Middle East. What are your thoughts on that, Bruce?
Well, that's two questions. I'll take them one at a time. First, Israel's genocidal, what I consider evil operations today, with the full support of the United States and most of Europe. I see it as desperation. They know that their day in the sun is coming to an end. Israel and the US are now without a doubt, the two most unpopular countries in the world because of everything going on there in Palestine and Lebanon, particularly. But we can't forget Syria, that Israel bombs frequently. And it's a sign of Western control, Western colonial control, European, US, total of 600 years of colonial control of much of the world, including the Middle East. Their day is fading, and they're going to the only thing they know, which is what the mob always does. It busts knees, right? If you don't submit to the mob's control, they bust your knees and take you out. And so that's all they know how to do. And at the same time, the military industrial complex is making a lot of money off the deal too. So that's really, I think it's pretty clear that that's what's happening. And the just absolute horror of how people are being destroyed on a daily basis, just the images, the stories, it's just despicable. And it's heartbreaking. So then we transit to the two candidates for election today, the two primary candidates, the two main corporate candidates, Harris and Trump. They both seem just quite pleased with the operation. Harris, because of pressure on her, the fear of losing the Muslim votes in states like Michigan and where they are a large part of the population. She has to sort of, play nice and say, "Oh, it's just terrible, and we're doing our level best." Now that Israel has taken out the leader of Hamas, maybe there'll be a better chance for a ceasefire. Just insincere BS all the way. When both parties, I mean, clearly Biden Harris administration are responsible for funding this operation today. And Trump is a longtime Zionist, just like the Democrats. Biden has long declared he's a Zionist. So it's despicable. And as I earlier said, it's going to ensure the fall of the United States even harder because of how complicit they are in this whole operation. So it's pure and simple evil. It's the devil's workshop at hand. And it's not easy being in this country right now.
Well, Ezra, I was going to go with this next question, and it's a good segue from Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. How are the American people responding to, again, two-part question? These two candidates, they're exactly the same in supporting the genocide. And how do you feel that they are, I don't know, looking forward to this election? Once again, the choice between two evils. And really, Jill Stein is out there battling like she always has been and is getting no recognition whatsoever, no real media support. So how do you see this shaping up?
Well, everybody, all the pollsters are saying it's close. Trump might have a couple percentage point lead. It's hard to say, but just to give you a picture of what I'm seeing, I ride my bike around town here in Brunswick, Maine, where I live, and I see virtually no Trump signs, but it's a liberal town, liberal Democrat controlled town. So it's no surprise that Harris signs are ubiquitous around the town. But we just went on a trip a couple days all the way north to Lubec, Maine, right along the Canadian border, up into the territory that's much more conservative. Trump is likely to carry that part of the state. But even there, I saw a lot of Harris signs. So I think that there's a lot of people in this country that have convinced themselves that keeping the Democrats in power is going to be better for the country. Obviously, a lot of people are kind of over Trump, and all the Trump isms that we've all experienced over the last many years. But it's hard to say. I think that a lot of conservatives really have real concerns about the direction the country is going, the moral direction under the Democratic Party reign. And I think there's good reasons for those concerns. So I think, and I just heard yesterday that late registrations now are trending in the direction of Republican Party. People that hadn't registered to vote that are doing it at the last minute. They're trending for the Republicans. So that could be something that really turns this election towards Trump. So it's hard to say. But in the end, whether it's war in Ukraine, whether it's military spending, whether it's genocide against the Palestinians, does anything really, really significantly change when it comes to either party? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, and the position of President Putin in Russia and the Russian government, they've stated publicly for some time now that it doesn't matter. The position of the United States will not change in terms of its foreign policy, especially towards Russia. So they're carrying on as if this election doesn't really even matter. Although I have to say that in talking with family here and friends, they're right now asking me every time I see them, who do you think is going to win the election? Uh, Most of them are kind of rooting for Trump. They think Trump sounds more friendly to Russia, or at least Trump is talking about ending the war in Ukraine. So that's kind of interesting.
Although I saw today that Trump was quoted as threatening Vladimir Putin some time ago. Trump was bragging, though, in the last day or so, that he called Putin and said, if you invade Ukraine, we will bomb the hell out of Moscow. So, you know, you don't really know with Trump, you know what I mean? He talks a lot of shit, and you never know when he's really telling the truth and when he's not. All his talk about uh, we didn't need NATO before he was first elected. He talked about this a lot. We don't need NATO, but he didn't really shut it down. He didn't do anything to uh, hamper it in any way. The only thing he did was force NATO members to pay a little more money, which some of them did and some of them didn't. So I don't really trust anything he or Harris says, to be honest with you. It's a blind night. It's a dark night. We really can't count on any so-called promises or statements.
Yeah, what about Jill Stein? You and I both know her. I interviewed her a couple of times when she came up to Maine, and uh, the Green Party, uh, back when she was running 2 times ago, wanted to bring her to Maine, but they didn't have anybody to bring her up here. So they asked me to go down to her home in Massachusetts to get her. And I said, well, of course, and because I'm not affiliated with any party at the time. And so I had the delightful pleasure of sitting in her kitchen while she was packing her lunch. She used to take, probably still does, her lunch, her food everywhere she goes, and having delightful conversation, which continued for another 2 hours, going from her home up to Portland. Um, and I've told everybody that I know she's the real deal. Uh, would certainly hope that she would be elected. And I kidded with her and I said, if you get elected, will you make me your White House official videographer, photographer? And she laughed. She said, of course. So anyway, what are your thoughts on Jill Stein? Because Maine is in a particular situation in terms of ranked choice voting. Explain that for those people who are listening, and your thoughts about Jill Stein.
Yeah, I'm going to vote for her. I'm going to rank her first in Maine. You can, in the presidential and the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House of Representative races, you can rank the order of your preferences. So I'll rank Jill Stein first, and then I'll rank somebody else second, somebody else third, somebody else fourth. And so when they do the tabulations, if nobody gets 50+% in an outright win, then they then go into the ranked choice voting process. And it means that a person with with the highest number of second place votes, for example, could theoretically win. So if Jill Stein got more second place votes than anyone else added to her first place votes, she would have the victory. And so it's a little more democratic, and so we'll see what happens. Uh, uh, it's really a question: is all the people that vote for Harris, do they just vote for Harris and nobody else, or do they go down the line and rank the other candidates? And if they were to rank Jill Stein second, then Jill would do very well because she would have the Green Party sympathizer first place votes, plus she'd have all these Democrat second place votes, which that very well could put her over a lot of the other candidates. So we'll see what happens.
All right. What do you think she has a prayer in hell's chance of getting elected?
No, but the question is, can she get enough votes to make the Green Party presidential campaigns in the future have an easier time not only to get on ballots, but also to get a share of the government campaign finance money. And so, that depends on your percentage points in the last election. So,
Yeah.
it would make Green Party efforts easier in the future.
So let me ask you this. Do you think, I mean, does voting for Jill Stein make you feel better that you didn't choose between the other two? Do you see it as some people do, as just taking votes away from one of the other two, or just, a waste? How would you respond to that?
No, it's not a waste at all. And, I haven't voted for a Democrat since I voted for Walter Mondale. And that was when he was running against Ronald Reagan in Reagan's reelection. Mondale had been Jimmy Carter's vice president when Jimmy Carter was in office. He was then defeated by Ronald Reagan when Carter ran for reelection. So I haven't voted for a Democrat since then. I voted for John Anderson. I voted for Ralph Nader a couple times. I voted for Jill Stein twice before. This will be my third time to vote for her. So, and I always feel, at least I'm voting for someone that I have much more confidence in. None of them are perfect. Jill Stein is not perfect, but she's much farther along than any of the rest of these people who are all corporate lackeys.
So, what were your thoughts about uh, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. joining Trump and supporting Trump and is going to be probably part of his administration if he gets elected? That was kind of a shock.
Initially, I was going to vote for RFK Jr. when he first declared. He had interviewed me on a podcast about Ukraine a couple of years ago. And it was clear to me by the questions he asked that he understood the issue very, very well. And he was just using me as a vehicle to put that out to his base. And so also because of his position on COVID and big pharma and on environmental issues, I mean, he's done some really great work over the years. So I was really going to vote for him. But then he took this dive unexpectedly, shocking a lot of us out here around the country when he went full bore for Israel's genocide against the Palestinians. And his statements about why he chose to do this were just irrational and ridiculous. And so I, like many others who had supported him, backed away and just said, forget about it. So it was no surprise then that he and actually Tulsi Gabbard too both joined the Trump campaign. And my only guess is that they've been offered some kind of role in his administration. But I also think that to give them both a little bit of credit, they both see the total corruption inside the Democratic Party that they've been part of for a long, long time. And I think they were also motivated by that. And I know that in Tulsi Gabbard's case, she debated Harris when she herself ran
Yeah,
for president.
yeah, I remember
And
that.
so she knows her pretty well. I mean, Harris is just a total crook, but like Biden is actually.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Let me ask you this. A big thing that I've been hearing, and I'm not following this very closely, but I've been hearing it from a number of sources, the open border and the millions of illegal entries into the United States. Uh, what is your take on that? And that seems to be completely a Biden Harris affair.
Well, I think it's kind of like abortion. The abortion topic never goes away. I can't remember a time in this country for a presidential election when abortion wasn't a big issue. And but go back to Obama, he when he was running the first time for president, he announced that he was going to secure the right to abortion as the first thing he did after he got elected. And then he got elected with total support by liberal women. And what did he say? He said, well, I don't really have time for that right now. There are other pressing issues. And then, of course, he didn't do anything ever. But at that time, he had control of the House, he had control of the Senate, and he could have enshrined Roe v. Wade at that time, but he never did. And so the Democrats and Republicans both play with that issue time and time again. And I think they do the same thing with the border. We got to remember that both parties represent the corporate interests, and corporations want to flood the country with immigrants because it gives them access to cheap labor and it keeps the overall wages down, right? They're also worried about population, that white Americans are not having so many kids these days for many reasons, because of the environment, parents concerned about raising children under, climate change, because women are working more now, and, and other reasons as well. So I think that because of that, they just, as they look at statistics, they see that, like in many countries in Europe, population is dropping. So they want to bring in more people for those reasons. And also, each party has their own particular reasons why they want a large number of, especially Hispanics, to come in. The Democrats see them as a voting bloc that will help them in times ahead. And then Republicans have reasons as well. But they both play this game, about we got to do something at the border. We got to stop this mass immigration. But then, just like abortion, they never really do anything to change any of this. We heard the Democrats complain about Trump's border policies and locking young kids up into, jails sort of, or encampments, when they came across the border, taking them away from their families. But the Biden administration has done the same thing. So there hasn't really been any change in either administration. So like so many other issues, I don't have any confidence in either one of them dealing with this issue. But I do think it's a serious problem because immigrants have been dumped into a lot of local communities around the country. First in the big cities like New York and other places, but now even in smaller communities. And they just dump them in the community, and the federal government doesn't give resources to the local governments to help them deal with housing and jobs and food and everything else, healthcare for these immigrant populations. So, there are legitimate reasons why people around the country are complaining about this mass open door, just letting so many people come in an unregulated and, most importantly, unsupported way.
Yeah. I've heard that the government has programs that are even giving these people money on a credit card, giving them driver's licenses, which automatically enables them to be able to vote, giving them a housing allowance. Is that true? Is that really happening?
It's not an issue that I've studied deeply, so I can't answer every one of those claims, but I do know some of those claims are real. I've heard just in the last few weeks after the hurricanes came, FEMA now saying they don't have enough money after the first hurricane to deal with the problems with the second hurricane. And FEMA admitted that a lot of their money has been going to supporting immigrants that have been coming in. So on some level, some of these claims are true. I'm just not sure which ones are true and which ones are false.
Yeah. Do you think it was a tactic on the part of the Democrats to add more voters to the rolls who they feel will vote for them? Because look what they did. They gave us this entry to the country. They gave us driver's licenses and blah, 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 blah. Do you think that was part of their strategy? Because I've read that as well.
I think it could be. And again, because I haven't studied this issue as deeply, I'm reluctant to agree totally with that claim. But again, I think that overall, Democrats do see Hispanics across the country as a base that will support them more than would support the Republicans. But there are, there are challenges to that idea because, like, for example, in Miami, Florida, where you have large Cuban populations, they tend to vote Republican. So, there are instances where Hispanics do vote more for Republicans than Democrats.
Yeah, I want to finish on this topic because we've talked about this before. Beginning this week, I think it's tomorrow actually, in Kazan, the Russian Federation, the BRICS movement is meeting. I guess there's some 30 countries that are going to be represented there. Many of them are formally applying for admittance to the BRICS movement, and others are there to find out what's going on, I guess, and to want to support it in ways that benefit their countries, their interests specifically. So what I think, because I've been studying this BRICS movement now for several years, one of their absolute main goals and objectives that will be discussed at this meeting. In fact, there have been several meetings here in Russia that have been addressing how they're going to deal with the international currency exchange. And most people believe that this is going to de-dollarize the US dollar as the international reserve currency. And there are other people like myself that are concerned that, those globalists, the global finance elite, so to speak, are threatened by this. And the question is, what will they do to stop it? What are your thoughts, Bruce? We have, I don't know, about 5 or 6 minutes left.
Yeah, I think the West is terrified about BRICS. The current membership of BRICS is overwhelmingly stronger economically, population-wise and economy-wise, than the G7, which is, the West's club, US and Europe. So they're really worried about it. And I think this is the primary reason for the Ukraine hammer being used to try to take down Russia, and NATO expansion to the Asia Pacific to try to take down China, and the Israel war on Iran to take them down, because these are three of the linchpins countries within BRICS to amongst many others. So I think this is the fear. And again, we see once again, the only strategy the West ever has is military. They can't try to go along and get along. They can't say, all right, let's all work together. They can't do that because they are addicted to power. 600 years of colonial control of the world economy and resources, particularly resources. And they're desperate and worried about how they're going to stay in control. And as we've said to each other many times, what are they going to do in the end? Are they going to go nuclear? Are they so desperate that they'll use nuclear to stay in control? So I think BRICS is a wonderful thing. I'm very hopeful about it. I hope hundreds of countries are eventually brought into BRICS because it really it signals a challenge to the United Nations, which the U.S. and Europe currently control, and it's a challenge to the global economic system, to the dollar exchange, and that's a great thing.
What do you think that's going to do and is already doing to the United States and Western economy?
Well, we're 30, I think it's $35 trillion in debt today.
Mhm.
Uh, the United States, when it's paying its annual debt money, it's now over. It's now over more expensive than what the United States spends on the Pentagon, which is $100 billion a year on the Pentagon, or $1 trillion basically a year. That's what the U.S. is paying on its debt now. So the generations to come in the United States will be servicing that debt forever. And it's going to get worse, which means that this economy is going to collapse. And the already difficult problem we have with social programs in this country and environmental cleanup, this is all in danger dramatically. There's not going to be any money for anything here anymore.
What do you think the tone of the American people is in general? Are they hopeful? Are they in desperation? Obviously, there's divisions on all levels of demographics. What are your thoughts on the temperature, the mood in the country right now?
I think people are very unhappy here. I think they're very feeling very desperate. They're very worried. That's why this election is so big, and that's why so many quote unquote liberals are turning to Harris just out of desperation. They were worried that if Biden ran, he would be trounced, and so they would have taken the local dog catcher to replace Biden, and they would have been happy with that. And they don't know anything about Harris. They don't know anything about her corrupt years in California, and so they're just desperate. So the American people are afraid. They're desperate. They're worried about the future, and the moral underpinning of the country is just dragging the bottom of the barrel. I mean, it's just really a sad state of affairs, how the moral fabric of this country is coming apart at the seams.
Yeah, Bruce, I want to thank you for that tonight. I always enjoy the conversations that we have both on air and off air, so to speak. Take care. Continue the struggle, my friend.
All right. Thanks a lot.